everybody? I'm Paris, and this is Keep It Social. And as always, I'm with my co-host, Terrence. What's up, Terrence? How are you?
Paris, I'm having a great day today. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm having a great day as well because, as you always say, it's a great day to have a great day.
That's it. That's it right there.
And Terrence, part of the reason it's a great day is because we have with us today Pavel, who is an activist and the creator behind the Karen's Going Wild Instagram page and blog. Hi, Pavel. How are you today?
Hi, I'm very good. I'm very excited to be here, and you guys invited me.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. So thanks for coming on. And Pavel, why don't you start by telling us what this page is about and what's its purpose?
Well, I feel like the Karen's Going Wild page was created to kind of like bring all the Karens out there in one side, and people can actually submit their own videos and their own photos. So that was kind of like the main, reason that I created the page. But Karens are being there for a while already. So I just wanted to be able to find a place where we can all them put it in one place.
Right. Like when I saw the page, or even when I've just had conversations with my friends, right? For a lot of us, Karen is not a new idea, like who Karen is, what she's all about is not necessarily new. And I think the fact that, we have these pages like yours that are documenting these actions is really important, because when we make these cultural references, right, like the term Karen really, from my understanding, came from the Black community. And so now it's like, making these references, and sometimes people don't get it, but you can always say, hey, go check out this Instagram page, and it'll give you some examples of how you're really, being a Karen right now.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember seeing the term Karen, like what we call like Black Twitter. And it's, it was a term that it was used like time after time. But I think it's like in the, since the Amy Cooper situation, it kind of just went like mainstream, and it just kind of like, we kind of realized that we couldn't put a new name to every situation that happened like that, because there was like Barbecue Becky or Water Bottle Tammy, like there was like so many. But people kind of like just decided to go with like one term, and it has definitely helped like bring justice sometimes. But my main purpose when the page is also kind of keep it fun, because like a lot of the young generation don't really like read news or newspapers. So I wanted to kind of combine this idea of like, like kind of make it a fun, because there are some situations that are really funny, and I try to keep the edits also like kind of like fun and entertainment. But at the same time, I always try to put like, facts there, like and information, because I wanted them to be able to realize that, that these Karen situations happen more often than wherever people normally read on mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting to me because when this term first started getting circulated around, I remember there was some social media account that really took offense and said, why are we, the Karen is the equivalent of the N-word, right? Because it's something that's being attributed to white women predominantly for certain behaviors. And there was this whole uproar about, no, that is a very false equivalence. And it's also interesting to me to see the evolution, because you mentioned like Barbecue Becky, and the Becky is a term that's from when I was like a teenager, right? And it's kind of come up and it's been used to describe, a certain, I guess, stereotypical white woman. And another thing that I saw that really kind of brought it home for me was that we have always had these tropes throughout our cultural history, right? Of like the Shaniquas and Shananes, the Li Mings, the Marias, right? And all these tropes that have been used to describe women of color. And now we have this one that is universally being used to describe white women. So I guess, Pavel, talk to us a little bit about like the cultural relevance and how this cultural relevance is meeting social justice.
I feel like, like you mentioned it before, nobody take offense that, that the names that they use for like Latinas are always these stereotypical, almost every show that you see online. But suddenly it was like an issue when somebody pinned out a name, when, technically that name has been like there for a while. Like, but I feel like now, like, you mentioned that there's some people who get upset about like, the name, and they believe there is a bad name. But I tell you, like, I literally get thousands of messages a day. And a large portion of those are actually Karens who are telling me, hey, you know, Pavel, my name is Karen, and I actually support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I actually support this cause, and it doesn't offend me. Don't listen to, like, it's just like a few people that believe that it's like, you know, offensive, and they don't like it. And I actually have seen it, like here in DC, we have had a lot of protests, you know, like, you know, we have gone on the street and protest almost every day, every weekend. And every time that I will see a sign saying like, you know, Karen's against like, you know, like racism, who's the manager of like a systemic racism? And I'll be like, wow, like they get it, you know, they get, they can use that power, that they got that privilege to be able to like do something good, you know, like, you know, instead that others actually use that privilege to try to like hurt like, you know, minorities and communities. But I feel that through the page, little by little, people are gonna realize that this type of behavior is not appropriate. As a minority too, like I've experienced like discrimination, people telling me go back to my country and things like that. So my hope is that one day all these things don't don't happen anymore.
Right. And I think also to your point, Paris, about, you know, the cultural references, like historically, you know, if we look back in history, which is something I like to do, you know, you realize that white women in particular have been protected by the American system, by the world, far more than I would say anyone else, right? White women have been protected, seen as a prize, seen as something to be, you know, kind of kept safe. And so I think when it comes to, you know, there being this idea of, oh, we can say these things about these other minority women or these other women of color and give them names, but you can't do that to us. You know, that's in my brain where that stems from, right? And also just thinking about, you know, since white women historically have been so protected, when it comes to Karens in particular, how that protection has given them a certain level of privilege to utilize their whiteness and their gender as a way to not only oppress, but just assert authority in situations where it need not be. You know what I mean? Like, it need not be. We, in my eyes, I haven't seen as many women of color doing the things that I've seen these white women do, right? Like, it just doesn't happen because the women of color don't have those licenses. You know what I mean? And so I think if we just, again, continue to look back at the evidence that presents itself, we can see how this has manifested itself and continues to manifest itself, you know, in 2020, sadly.
So, Pavel, we'll give you the last word. Where do you hope things go from here with the Karen's Going Wild phenomenon, with the page, with your account, with all of your activism around it?
Yeah, I really hope that, you know, the page keeps growing and I use the platform to be able to educate people, like what's happening with the postal service, you know, like, these news that sometimes we kind of like don't pay attention to it. I can kind of present it to you in a fun way that it can actually make you understand more. Yeah, like what you're seeing in the, you know, I don't know if you've seen the Tonight Show, the Late Show, like the shows that kind of present comedy, but also like they give you information.
Well, Pavel, we appreciate the content that you are putting out there and the work that you're doing. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you much for inviting me. And I'm going to continue watching. You guys are great.
Thank you. Well, that's it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to all our social channels. And let us know what you'd like to see on the show. We'll see you next time. And until then, Terrence, what should they do?
Don't be a Karen and keep it social. Bye, friends.